its meeting to order. This is the Redistricting Advisory Committee, City of Half Moon Bay, Thursday, August 26, 2001. I'm Chair Marin Holt. I'm just going to do a quick roll call. So Vice Chair Paul Gator.
Present.
Thank you. Hal Bogner, committee member.
Present.
Steve Maller, committee member. Okay, looks like Steve's not here yet. He might be, oh, there he is, just popping in. Hi, Steve Maller, committee member, is present. Claudia Marshall, committee member.
Present.
Hey, Claudia, welcome back.
Thanks.
Bill Marshall, committee member. Okay, well, you might pop in here soon. And then Michael Settles, committee member.
Present.
Thank you. All right, everybody, on the agenda tonight, we have public hearing number 1 of 2. We'll have a public comment period open after that, and that will be our meeting for tonight. So if there's nothing else, I think we can get started, and we have our representative from NDC, Shalise Tilton, who's going to do our presentation.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to just get a verbal from that you can see the PowerPoint.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yep.
This is actually our first official public hearing, and this public hearing will be counted toward as one of the 4 required hearings of the Fair Maps Act. The purpose of this hearing is to educate the public on the redistricting process and to solicit inputs on communities of interest in each of the districts, how the district should be comprised. We are anticipating that we will have the official California prisoner adjusted census data at the end of September, and then there'll be a 3-week waiting period. Then we will ask the public to submit maps, and the submission deadline, you can be working on maps beginning now. We have tools, we have some of the tools already available, and we are hoping to have maps submitted by October 28th. Then this commission will start reviewing those maps on November 8th and December 16th. We'll have an additional workshop on the maps that have been, the focus maps that are identified by the commission. And then we will have the first post-map hearing by the City Council, January 19th, more workshops by the commission on January 22nd and January 27th. And then the City Council will have its second public hearing to discuss the draft maps and looking to an adoption by March 15th. The rules and goals of the redistricting are guided by law and traditional principles. The federal law is equal population, and it must be based on the federal decennial census. As I mentioned, in the state of California, we have to adjust that federal decennial census number to zero out all the state prisoners and reassign them to their last known home locations. We also must follow the Federal Voting Rights Act and draw boundaries in a manner that would not dilute the voting strength of our protected class groups. I will, in the next slide, talk about what those protected class groups are. And then we cannot draw maps based solely on race. It can be a factor, but it cannot be the only factor or the predominant factor. Instead, we would look at shared culture, shared social networks, shared language spoken at home, things like that, in addition to race. Race can be a factor, but just not the prominent or only factor. When we're looking at California law, this is guided by the Fair Maps Act. It's new. It became effective January 2020. I say it's new because when the city did its districts, it did not have to follow this mandated criteria. And this criteria is now prioritized in the order that's shown on the screen. The first being geographically contiguous. Each single district must have a single solid boundary. It can't be made up of various different pieces. The second criteria is undivided neighborhoods and communities of interest. And that means that when there are geographical concentrated areas of certain socioeconomic communities that bind them together. We need to keep them together if it is important for their fair and effective representation. Third is easily identifiable boundaries. Oftentimes, if you can verbalize where those boundaries are, then you've met this criteria. So common streets, railways, canals, waterways, natural features to identify the boundaries of the districts to the extent practicable. And then compactness. Compactness doesn't necessarily mean the size and the shape, but more that do not pass one group of people to get to a more distant group of people. And it's prohibited to favor or to draw boundaries that favor or discriminate against a political party. Once we've met those federal and state laws, we can look at other traditional principles, such as minimizing those voters that are shifted from a 2022 year to a 2024 year. And then if we have met all the prioritized criteria, we also can consider if we're able to draw an option where we avoid head-to-head contests between incumbents. We will draw that option because we want the voters to decide who has earned re-election, as opposed to us grouping incumbents in one district and giving the voters only a single choice. We can consider future population growth, but again, we still must abide by that equal population. And when we were talking equal population, it does not need to be exact. There can be a 10% difference between the least populated district and the greatest populated district. So if there's an area we know it has some future housing development, you can slightly underpopulate that, but just a few percentage points. And preserving the core of existing districts is often a principle that's considered when drawing boundaries. When we're talking a protected class group, the California Voting Rights Act defines it broadly as a class of voters who are members of a race, color, or language minority group. We're talking language minority groups. They are specifically defined in federal law to mean persons of American Indian, Asian American, Alaskan natives, or Spanish heritage. So in this case, we for Half Moon Bay, we're often looking at the Hispanic or Latino community as a language minority protected class. What I'm showing on the screen here, because we don't have the official 2020 data, this is 2020 estimated total population. NDC is providing these estimated figures. And we believe that there has been some growth in particularly District 2, which would cause some, we would not be population balanced if we use the existing boundaries. In fact, it would be off by a significant number. But please know that when we're dealing with such a small jurisdiction, that these numbers can fluctuate. The percentages, jump very quickly. So when we get the official numbers, we could be closer to being closer to population balance than what's showing here. It just depends on how those official figures come out. I want to call your attention to the citizen voting age population. The citizen voting age population, those are residents who are 18 years of age or older and who are US citizens. So this is the category that's often looked at by when folks are looking to see if we have done a good job at meeting the Federal Voting Rights Act. And often you'll look at the proportions of the protected class groups. We're talking, I want to call your attention to the percentage of Hispanic citizen voting age population in the community. And you'll see that District 2 has the largest proportion at 24%. And when we're talking Hispanic, the terms Hispanic and Latino or Latinx are interchangeable for purposes of the census. On the census questionnaire, the question says, are you Hispanic or Latino? So when you hear us say Latino or Hispanic, it's one and the same for this exercise. We don't have a significant population of our African-American or Black community. We do have some good proportion of Asian American Pacific Islander, and our highest district there is at 11% in District 1. Still kind of low numbers, but enough to show on a map. I do have a slide later talking about the model. The model for presently, the election system is set up for 4 districts with a directly elected mayor. The city council has asked this commission to evaluate the option of a 5-district plan and have a rotating mayor, as was historically the case for Half Moon Bay before it created its districts. It's good to know that we have not yet had a directly elected mayor. That position wouldn't come up until 2022. So if the change were to happen now, it would just continue the same as has been in the past practice if there was a desire to go to 5 districts. If we're going with 4 districts, there needs to be about 3,183 in each district. And if we're going with 5 districts, that number would be 2,546. This commission will be submitting a 4-district plan and a 5-district plan. We're asking members of the public to submit whichever plan they're interested or one of each. This is a demographic map showing the concentrated areas of our Latino eligible voters, our citizen voting age population. And we can see that we see our highest concentrations in, as I mentioned, districts 2 and district 3. You're looking for the green, the yellow, and the pink colors. Those are census blocks that show the highest percentage of those who are 18 years of age and older. We look at other socioeconomic demographics. We can, what I'm showing here on the screen is the number of children at home. You see the lighter, the greens and the yellows, mostly just green is showing up here on the left-hand side. And then households that rent their homes. The greens, the yellows, and the pinks are also showing the higher proportions of households that rent their homes in those particular areas. Tonight, we want to hear from the public on what are the neighborhoods in the city and what are those boundaries of the neighborhoods. It's best if you describe the physical features of your neighborhood boundaries. Give us the names of the streets, major roads, highways, rivers, canals, if it's an area around a park or hills or other natural landmarks. And then in addition to just neighborhoods, we also want to talk about communities of interest. So a community of interest is a geographical area that shares shared characteristics, and they can be a number of things. They could be things such as environmental concerns, public safety concerns, health issues, housing issues, transportation, similar work habits or similar employment. Those types of things would define a community. And then once we've defined those communities, we need to ask the question, would they benefit from being included in a single district, or would they benefit from being in more than one district and have multiple representatives? Just keep in mind, a community of interest may not include relationships with political parties, incumbents, or political candidates. We have a definition of communities of interest. It's a population that shares common social or economic interests that should be included within a single district for purposes of its effective and fair representation. I mentioned the model options. So we actually have 3 options. One would be the current model, which, as I mentioned, we don't have an elected mayor yet. That would happen in 2022 if we kept 4 districts. And that would be an elected mayor with a 4-year term. There's another option of 4 districts and an elected mayor with 2-year terms. So we're wanting to hear from the public on what your preference is, and we definitely want to hear from the commission on the commission's preference. And then 5 districts and a rotating mayor. We have mapping tools that are available for the public to use. We have different tools for different purposes. We have the paper map kit and the paper kit with an Excel-based spreadsheet that I think I was able to show you last time. And new, I don't believe you've had a chance to preview this with the commission, is District R. I'm going to show you District R. It's a paintbrush tool. And again, if you're drawing a 4-district map, 3,183. And if you're drawing a 5-district map, 2,546. The next slides are just quick previews of mapping tools. I'm going to go quickly through those because I want to switch and actually show you quickly the paper maps, show you the interactive review map, the paper maps, and District R just very quickly. All maps that are submitted, whether you've used one of our tools or you use your own tool or you take the present map and make it and adjust the lines, once you submit them to the city, they are transferred to NDC, and NDC will professionally produce them for public review. So they will all look very similar. This is 106B. This is the adopted map from 2018. But we will produce every map in the same style and in the same fashion so they all can be evaluated on equal terms. Each map will be accompanied by a demographic summary, giving you all the different socioeconomic categories for each of the districts. This happens to be the 4-district plan that was adopted. And I know these numbers are small, but the top gives you the total population. It also gives you the citizen voting age population broken down by those, the race and ethnicity that I mentioned. Gives you voter registration, voter turnout, and then socioeconomic information such as the proportion of age, immigration status, language spoken at home, language fluency, education levels, children at home, household income, and housing status. Wanted to just quickly explain census blocks. Census blocks is the smallest geographical unit that is counted by the US Census. So they draw the shape of these census blocks. If you see on their left-hand side, sometimes the shapes are perfectly square and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're odd shaped. So I'm looking at the one kind of towards the top that it's 74 people. And it's an odd shape as what you're seeing. And this is good to know, because when you're drawing the maps and you're using one of the tools, it's going to highlight the entire census block area. So if you were only intending just to capture the lower portion and you're wondering why a larger area was colored when you're using the tools, that's because we must follow that smallest unit of geography, and that's the census blocks. I want to explain what NDC's population units are. The population units are used for purposes of the paper map and really only used for the paper map. The reason why is if we produced a map that had all of the census block counts in it, it would be very difficult to use. And one would spend tremendous time with a calculator adding up all of the little tiny blocks. So we've grouped them into population units. If you do not like the way we've drawn the population units, you can, and I will show you how to do it, you can go to the interactive review map, see what the underlying census blocks are, and follow the geography of the census blocks, and just make a notation on your paper map that you followed a particular street. So you don't have to stick to the population units. You do have to stick to the smaller geography of the census blocks. We have a simple, the online interactive review map is a simple just review tool. I will be showing you that briefly. Paper maps, the paper map with an Excel spreadsheet, I'm going to show you that. District R, I'll be showing you that. That's a fun tool that I think you're going to like using. And then the more sophisticated tool is not available yet, and it likely won't be available until after the official census data is out. Let me go ahead, and I want to go ahead and switch to the interactive review map first, show you that. Let's go to the website. I want to show you the where you can find these tools yourself. You go to drawhmb.org. You can read a little bit about the redistricting process, see the schedule. Draft maps, once they're available, they'll be listed. They'll be listed here in PDF format with their demographic summaries. We have frequently asked questions, resources, and contacts. What's interesting about this resources is we have the archive under here. This archive gives all the 2018 information, including maps that were submitted. So if you recall a map from 2018 that you particularly liked, you could bring that map up and you could work with that map as well as your base, using that as your base map. We go to draw a map, and we have all the mapping tools listed. The paper map we have listed first. We kind of list them in order of how easy they are to use. Paper map only in English and Spanish. We have the paper map with an Excel spreadsheet. If you don't want to use a calculator to add everything, you can use the supplemental map and the Excel spreadsheet. We have District R, Calipers Maptitude Online. That's the one that we're coming after the official census data is out, and the official interactive review map. We also have some other resources for you to look at. We have a demographic summary of the existing districts, and that will show you all of those categories that I showed quickly on the screen, and that it was in that very small format. We have the thematic map showing the concentrated areas of your Latino citizen age population, a thematic map showing the concentrated areas of those families that speak Spanish language at home, and a renders thematic map, and the child at home thematic map. I'm going to show you first the interactive review map. You would just click on that. I already have it open here. You can use the plus and the minus features to move around. Grab it with your hand, move it around. And then you can highlight the layers, which I have over here, and the menu pops up on your left-hand side. Right now, I have the current districts highlighted. That's showing you the colors of the current districts. I'm zoomed in kind of the center part of the city. I also have highlighted the census blocks. So if you zoom in closely, you can see where those the census block geography. And recall, I mentioned this one odd-shaped census block. Just wanted to show you that. This interactive map is very useful when you're using the paper map and you're not sure exactly what street names are following the lines. I'm going to change my base map gallery to just a light gray to make this map a little bit less busy. Go back to my layers over to the left here. Perhaps take off the current districts. And now it's just showing the census blocks. If I show you the population units, it's going to show a purple line, and I can unclick the census blocks. And this matches up to the paper map. So if you're using the paper map and you're not sure, oh, is that Kelly Avenue that follows this particular line of all these population units, then this map is useful in zooming closely to see the street names, or you can zoom out. We get back to the home. And there you see the entire city. Of course, it gets overlapped. So you'll probably want to zoom closer as you're drawing your maps if you want to look at the street names. So I wanted to show you that as maps get submitted, they will be listed here under the layers. So the different maps will be populated under the layers. I'm going to hop back to the website, and we're going to go to the paper maps, show you these very quickly. Here's the paper map. You can, this one happens to be, I'm sorry, I opened the one that's showing all of the population units. It's not showing the population counts, it's showing them all numbered. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is if you want to use the Excel spreadsheet. You've drawn your map, you've already drawn your map, but you don't want to do the population adding yourself. You use this population unit ID numbers, and then you would open up your Excel spreadsheet. This is the Excel spreadsheet. Click here. Sorry, it's giving me a hard time. sorry, let me start over here. This is not the one I wanted to show you. I need to check and see what's going on with that link. Yeah, I apologize. I have a new computer, but I know that it's been opening up for me, no problem. The Excel spreadsheet, what you do is you open up the spreadsheet and you assign the numbers next. It lists all the population units, ID numbers, and if you've assigned, say, a certain range of numbers to, say, District 4, you would just enter District 4 next to them, and it would show you that. I can bring up the actual spreadsheet that I have in my files if it's of interest to you to see now. Let me get back to, I know that we've seen the Excel spreadsheet before, and I can show that to you later if there's time or interest, or if you want to try it again. I'm going to test out these links to make sure that I have. Yeah, it's not working for either of my links. I think it's on my end, and I apologize for that. I want to show you District R. I believe I have District R open already. Go ahead and show you District R. District R is a new tool this year. Again, it has the plus and minuses to zoom in and out, or you just click and drag, just like Google Map. Let's go ahead and make it a little bit larger. Let's deal with our the downtown area. Let's draw some maps. You can see I have the population tab open, and it tells me that the ideal that I'm seeking for a 4-district map is 3,182. I'm going to click the paintbrush and make my paintbrush size small because we don't have a lot of area in these downtown areas, but as soon as I hold my cursor, it's going to highlight particular census blocks. Remember, it's grabbing the geography of all the census blocks. And I'm watching over on the left-hand side, the population growing as I'm coloring in particular census blocks. And I know I'm going to be over when I start to color these guys. Yeah, I'm going to be way over by then, but I can erase and say, oh, I still like my upper portion. I'm going to undo some, I'm going to erase some of these down here below. Trying to get to that ideal population. And that gets us much closer. Then you would just simply click the paintbrush again and start your next district. And again, I'm just drawing. I'm not, there's no, there's no sense to where I'm drawing these lines, just to demonstrate how to use the tool.
Shalise, I'm sorry, while you're doing this, can you, where is it that you can define 4 districts versus 5 in this tool?
This tool, when they submitted that, they did it with the 4 districts. So what you would do if you want 5, the workaround, and they're working on getting me, these vendors are slammed, by the way, and they know me well because I hound them daily. So if you want to do 5, you would just instead just watch your count over here and get to the ideal of 2,546. And of course, your last district would be white. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So you would color 4 districts and you would use the other number. And then your 5th district would be not colored. I'm hoping to get the tool for you, but whoops, I don't want to do that. The option, I don't think they anticipated having options, you know, a 4 or 5 district option. In fact, you're our only client that is doing that.
And given one more question, sorry, given the number of different tools that we have, the submitted maps is, is there can a community member or a committee member submit a map from any one of the tools and they're all considered equal in terms of their output?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, when you're evaluating the maps, you will not know in which format they're submitted. They could even be a previously submitted map from the 2018. Of course, you'd have to, who's ever submitting it would want to make sure it's population balanced, not just submit that map. And then once you've drawn in all your districts, you click save. And you can go ahead and share now is the default. If you want to come back and visit, you want to copy this URL. So copy this if you want to go back to visit that plan. You can save it as a work in progress, save the draft, or you can go ahead and share it if you're done. And then it already has it tagged for Half Moon Bay, so we know that all of the plans that's submitted through the city's website will be grouped together when we're getting towards the end of the map submittals. Then we'll get the batch of all of the HMB 2021 ones. And then you can give it a name. You can use your last name. You can use any name. Say if you had a particular focus on a particular area, you give it that name. The team name is just a unique identifier. And then you would click share to gallery. So I'm going to head, I don't want to share this because it's junk.
Lisa, it looks like Phil might have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, can you show that map again a sec, please, Shirley?
Yes.
So this map has a non-contiguous district in blue. You see that little blue triangle off the side?
Right.
Will it still let you save it? And if it does, what will happen to that map after it's submitted?
This tool lets you save it. The other tool, there's a verifier that you can check and check for non-contiguous. If someone were to submit this map, and there's several issues with this map, you know, here, there's several issues. We would go ahead and produce it, and we would say it's non-contiguous because it left out this section and it had this section that should belong to to this district. If you've put your name on it, we know who has submitted it, and we can get a hold of you. We'll try to fix those with you over the phone. If it's obvious that was not your intention, sometimes it's pretty clear and there's a pretty simple fix. If we can't get a hold of you when we present the maps, and you know, if it's a simple fix, just something like, say it was just, this was the only issue, we would go ahead and produce the map as submitted. And when we're submitting it, it would say that it's non-contiguous, but we'd also say it's very easily fixed and would only affect, you know, just very few people, or we would give you the exact amount of people that it would affect. And so the maps could still be considered by the commission, and we would clean it up. We don't just automatically clean up maps without a conversation with the map submitter, because we don't want to, we want their intent preserved with what they intended when they were submitting the map. Good question.
Okay, so even if we make little mistakes, go outside the lines a little bit, it doesn't matter. You'll still produce the map and we can still include it in a discussion.
Yeah, it will still be produced for discussion, but we'll say, you know, that it has this issue. Yeah.
Shalice, it also looks like you can save things as a work in progress, and no one else can see that, right? If you're just saving something as a work in progress.
Right, but I believe you need to save that URL.
Okay, thank you.
I'll have to start over. Okay. All right, so that's my run through of the maps. Are you interested in seeing the spreadsheet? I think we went over it before, but I'm happy to show it if there's anyone who wants to see it. I just need to get it.
I would like you to briefly go over it, please.
Okay. Give me just 1 second here. It's coming up. Just a second here, and I'll share my screen. Okay, so you should have a spreadsheet that you're seeing on your screen now. Can someone give me a verbal yes if you can see it?
Yes.
Okay. When you first open it up, it brings you to an instruction page. And the thing to know about this spreadsheet is there's 3 different sheets to it. There's the instructions, the assignments, and the results. So you can read through these assignments. This tells you how to fill in the instructions. It tells you how to fill in the assignments. So as you recall, we had 2 different forms of the paper map. Both have the population unit boundaries. One of them showed the population counts. So it had 224, 429, 533 in each of those areas. The second map that goes along with it, if you want to use this Excel spreadsheet, has the same boundaries, but instead of population counts, it shows the population unit ID numbers, and they're numbered consecutively. So after you draw your map, and if you want to use this Excel spreadsheet to do your addition for you, you would say your numbers your unit population unit ID numbers 1 through 10, you assign to your district 4. You would just go to your spreadsheet and assign it to district 4, and then say, let's give a little bit more because I can, let's give it a little bit less. I'm cheating. I'm looking at the top here, my quick reference. It's showing me I'm way over. So I don't want too many. Okay, that's better. All right, so that's my district 4. Say my next one is my district 3. You would never want to do this without looking at a map because you could have non-contiguous districts if you just do this randomly like this. Okay, and then district, say this is district 2 for my next numbers. It'll never go in numerically in order, by the way. And say my the rest were in district 1. Let's see if I got them all. Okay. Now you can go to the results page, this next tab at the bottom, and it will show you how you did on total population. I didn't do a great job because I'm over the 10%. I need to be, I'm at 12.63. So that's showing I have too few in district 1 and I have too many in district 4. Again, when you're dealing with these little tiny, these smaller jurisdictions, it's really a finite number. But say I was within 10%. You could also look at the citizen voting age population and see how well I did at getting perhaps higher proportions of a certain protected class. And in my district 4, I had 24%. When the overall for the city is 16%. So that does show me that there are some higher concentrations in District 4. Also, just of interest, and this version I brought up this is actually the 2020 registration and the 2020 voters. And that might be a problem. I think we're in transition to correct that. But this is of interest. It really doesn't have any bearing on how the district's lines are drawn, but it is interesting to show where your voter registration lies and your voter turnout.
Shelley, sorry, I just noticed that Steve and Phil both have their hands up for questions.
Okay.
Steve?
Thank you. 2 questions about this. Number one, sorry to be a stick in the mud here, but this seems somewhat problematic because after all the work is done with the maps, you have to actually transpose all of those numbers by hand into the spreadsheet. Are there any of the models that feed this spreadsheet directly?
Yeah, oh yes. So you do not need to do this at all. This spreadsheet, this is only to help you when you're drawing maps to see if you don't want to use a calculator and you're using the paper map, this is completely optional. When you use District R and you press submit, and there you can see the population totals only. It won't be until after we've produced the maps that you'll see the citizen voting age population. But with the caliper maptitude, you will have all this information and more. It will have everything that's in the demographic summary.
Okay, I understand. So this is really literally for, the cave dwellers who don't have access to those tools. Sorry.
Or who don't want to use those tools, and they started with a paper map and then they were just curious to see how they did with the citizen voting age population, perhaps.
Right, cave dwellers. So, and then my second question, sorry, bad humor there. My second question is, again, I'm seeing 4 districts hard coded into this spreadsheet. Where is the ability to designate 4 versus 5 districts in this tool, or in any of them for that matter?
Yeah, there's a separate model. So there's a separate model, and on the web page, it's listed separately. There's a 4-district model and a 5-district model.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying the tools like District R will hopefully be updated by the time we start being able to work with real data. But if not, you did talk about the workaround,
right.
Never mind. That's a rhetorical question.
I think what we'll do is we'll add a note here for now, saying for a 5-district model, achieve 2,546 per district, and leave your 5th district blank. The color of your 5th district will be white.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
It's a very simple tool, but it's very sophisticated and complicated on the back end. Then it's a nice tool because it's easy to use, but there's a lot behind it.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, can we go back and look at the summary table, please?
On the Excel spreadsheet?
Yeah, please. So I know this is just a random example, but I think it's interesting. So you said that one of our goals, in fact, one of our primary goals, is to not dilute the vote of the Latino community since they're a protected class. So looking at these percentages, we've got 12% in District 1, 11% District 2, 20% in District 3, 24% in District 4.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still too diluted, too split over the 4 districts? If we got this result, should we go back and adjust it so that some of those percentages are higher, some of them lower? What should we do?
Well, you can't really just draw a map just to boost your percentages. So that's where it's important to maybe evaluate. This is where it's useful when you see several maps that are submitted and compare the demographic summaries for each of the maps. So if there's an outlier, so one that if maybe consistently every map that's submitted has maybe 30% Latino community, and then you get one map that is at 16. So you would know that one map, if their highest is 16, or then you would likely, that would probably be an indicator to look to see if maybe they've divided that community, because everyone else was able to get 30. So, and I'm not sure that 30 is even possible, actually. I'd have to bring up the demographic summary of the existing to see where we ended up with at the last one. I think I have it here, actually. Yeah, I don't have it queued up yet. Queued up, I have it, of course, in the PowerPoint. We can look at that.
Okay, so I think you're saying that if all 4 districts were at 16, then that would be a dilution of their vote. But the way that it's come out here with 2 districts higher than 16%, then that's a good result.
Yes, but I do want to say that you can't always use that rule for every jurisdiction, because there are some jurisdictions where your Latinx community is evenly dispersed throughout the entire city. So you may not be able to get much past what if the total proportion is 16%, you may not be able to get much higher if they're evenly dispersed throughout the city. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But if there are neighborhoods where there's higher geographical concentration, that's what you want to respect. And that's what will give you the higher numbers.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, let me go back to the PowerPoint now. Whoops. So we do need to officially open the public hearing and hear comments from the community. And what we're looking for is, what is your neighborhood? What are the boundaries? What are other notable areas? What other communities of interest? If you have any questions about the mapping tools, I'm happy to answer them. We're hoping to hear from the commission some discussion on what those neighborhoods are, your cities, what the particular character of different areas of the city are. And that's helpful in helping us to guide the map drawing process. And of course, here is the city's website where you can get to all of those tools. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions now before you open the public hearing, or if you want to go ahead and open the public hearing, and then I can answer after you've closed the public hearing, or whatever is your preference.
Should we open the public hearing, or do committee members have any questions or comments right now?
I just have one. I raised my hand, Marin, but I don't know if you could see it.
Sorry. Sorry if I missed you.
Oh, no. I just want to make sure I'm following the process. Okay.
No, go ahead.
My question. Oh, thank you. My question is, there was some discussion about the growth expectation, and we know Half Moon Bay has not grown a lot, but it has grown somewhat. So what are the growth expectations in the city that we might not be aware of, that we need to be aware of as we're trying to shape this map?
You would really only want to know if there are any approved housing developments. That's typically what you would be using to gauge your future growth. I know that oftentimes master plans have areas for growth, and housing needs assessments have areas for growth, but typically jurisdictions would look at approved housing projects if they are of any significance. And I'm
And
sure
just
that
to follow up to that, and Jessica. Now, I'm just going to follow up with Jessica. Are there any items in those categories that we need to be aware of?
You know, not, there's only one I can think of, but prior to next week, I'll get a firm answer for you from our community development department.
Okay, thank you.
Claudia?
What about the, Jessica, I don't know if you're referring to the hotel that's going to be built at the end of Main Street, south end of Main Street. But should we be including those potential rooms within or workers within our counts?
I don't
You
think
only want to look at
I don't think
residents.
it's- Sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Jessica, were you answering that? Sorry about that.
Yeah, you only want to look at residents of the city, not, you know, transient occupants or any of those temporary, you know, the people that come in temporarily.
So would the hotel that's been designated for the homeless, would those people be counted?
Oh, Shalice?
if they were there as of April of 2020, they would have been counted.
Just to be clear, I don't think it was open as of April 2020. Is that correct?
I don't believe so, no.
It was not, no. Thank you.
Okay, it seems like we can possibly move to opening public comment.
We don't have any public speakers, Chair Holt.
Okay. So what is our next step then in the absence of public comment tonight?
Committee comments.
Okay.
Did you want us to comment on neighborhoods that we live in or know of?
Mhm.
Is
Yeah,
that,
that would be
kind of
helpful.
what you're looking for here? Since there's
Yeah,
no
that would
members,
be helpful.
since there's no members of the public, we're representing the public as best we can. Okay.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. I'm happy to go first if you want me to.
Go ahead, Paul.
So I live in Frenchman's Creek. I think it's a neighborhood that's very well defined by Highway 1 to the west, by Frenchman's Creek Road to the south, by the nurseries to the north, and by basically the limits of what's developable to the east. So it's, you know, there's no connection to any other housing areas in the city directly from Frenchman's Creek without going back onto Highway 1 and south to the neighboring areas. So it's quite a self-contained neighborhood, has a city park, diverse, I would say diverse community in terms of age, everything from families with small kids to retired people who are much older than I am. And that kind of summarizes what I know about Frenchman's Creek. Is that the kind of information you're looking for?
Yes, excellent. And because it won't be large enough on its own, what adjoining neighborhood seems to be most similar?
Yeah, so I would say what's currently drawn in the district map, I think we're in District 1. So the other communities that are in between us and basically Main Street to the east of Highway 1. I think that the issue that we share with those communities, or one of them, is getting across Highway 1. So I think there's probably other issues that I'm not so aware of, but that one is a big one for us. The difficulty it can be to get out onto the main highway to get out and do stuff. So I think they fit quite well with Frenchman's Creek.
Chair, is it acceptable if I bring up the interactive review map so we can kind of have a visual?
Yeah, that would help me too, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Pardon me. 1 second here. I'm going to bring up the current districts here.
Yeah.
These districts colors are so dense. It's really difficult. Okay, so Frenchman's Creek.
It's further north.
Maybe perhaps I
Went past it, I think.
this area.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, let me zoom out a little bit. We could actually even use District R to color in, and we could see the counts. Shall we try that?
Sure, why not? Yeah.
Okay. Let's start over. Oh, we don't want to start there. Oh, we can do this. We go
I feel
to here.
very uninformed about Alabama. Yeah.
Drawing 4 districts here. Okay. I'll see if I can get this changed so we also have the existing districts on here because we don't have them. So Frenchman's Creek is this area, correct? Okay.
Correct. Yep.
We just, I'm going to pan so we get closer there and we can see what the population counts are. What I'm going to do is make the paintbrush very small so we don't accidentally pick up more people. I'm going to do the population. See, this one is one big area. And there's 533 people there. So if you cross over this way and you're saying crossing this way, you have shared interest this way.
I think we share more interest staying on the east side of the highway. Yeah.
Oh, staying on the east.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because you have I'll share the issues of getting across.
Right. Exactly.
And then from this point going north or going
but then going north, you're out of the city limits pretty quickly.
We're out.
Yeah.
So you'd either cross over or go south, which makes more sense.
Well, I'd go south. Yeah, staying on that side. Yeah. So just like that. And then those pieces that you're filling in there, Shalice, these are other census blocks that don't get picked up by the paintbrush because of the way it works.
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Can I point out too, while we have this open, I don't want to jump the line. I know, Steve, you've had your hand up for a bit. So, but can we keep this up just so we can come back to looking at the map and how this tool works?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Steve, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I have, I think, kind of a companion question, but in some sense orthogonal to what Paul has asked, which is that it strikes me that communities that are sort of geographically contiguous, something like Frenchman's Creek or Ocean Colony or others that are, in some cases actually walled communities. Those are natural boundaries, but it seems like there are other boundaries as well, practical boundaries. And I know we're sort of all in one big school district as far as I know, so there isn't issues around schools, probably, but maybe I'm wrong. But there may be issues that we can think about with respect to things like public transportation, bus stops, commute lanes, and other sorts of demographic things, lines in terms of types of housing. We have a lot of portable housing in the city. We have a significant number of residents that live in those versus multifamily units and so on. And I'm just wondering, like, different ways that we can kind of chop up this data to make sure that we're looking at it in ways sort of maybe more broadly and even sort of from different dimensions that like things like the CVAP and things like that offer us. And it's just kind of a general question, whether there's other things that we should be considering other than the obvious.
So Steve, the thing that I'm having fun with when I play around with this is if you see where, if you can click on the data layers on the screen that we're looking at right now, and you can actually unclick show painted districts, and then click on additional demographics at the bottom. And you can, there's a variety of things you can look at, as you can see right here. So children at home, high school grad, plus 75 income, college graduate, renter present, and so on. And I'm finding that actually very informative for who lives in the districts. And I've actually learned some things about the demographics of our city just in the last 10 minutes poking around with this. So
so that brings up an important question, Marin. I appreciate that. But where are these demographic variables going to be reflected in our, and can we have sort of a rough sense of how best to think about those variables in terms of building the strongest map that we can in terms of fairness, which I think is probably what I would hope we're all looking for.
I was wondering the same thing, Steve. How do we find it? How do we get this more, I guess, broken down than just shading on the map?
Mm-hmm.
When you use the caliper maptitude, you can look up each of those categories, percentages by the districts that you built. So that's a much more powerful tool than just this concentrated map. But as you point out, this is helpful because we just drew a district that we basically stopped here, and now we're getting into an area that has maybe more multifamily residents here. So maybe this area doesn't quite align with this area. And maybe this area does a little bit more, but we can't cut off, we'd have to take all of this. We can't cut off this area, right?
Right, because of the census blocks. So I guess one of the questions, going back, Shalice, to something that you said earlier, which is that when the maps are produced and will be presented for consideration, we won't be able to tell which tool generated them. So are we to then assume that some of this data will be buried because some of the tools provided and some don't? I guess okay.
Yeah, we will enter all the tools into our demographer software, so they will all have the data for you to evaluate in the end. It's just that the
including
person
things
drawing,
like the multifamily residents and so on, and some of these variables. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
when you're evaluating it would be complete. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
And it looks like Claudia, you have your hand up. Are you still waiting? Okay, her hand might be up from before. Phil?
Yeah, it was up from before. I thought I had lowered it.
No problem. Phil, I think you're up next.
Yeah, just real quick, what does multifamily residence mean?
Apartments.
I don't know. I guess I don't understand. Multifamily, so more than one family living in
a single
building,
in a dwelling. Yeah, an apartment dwelling.
Okay.
Phil, I believe that's the opposite of a single family home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I should think of a building with multiple families living in, several apartments or something like that.
I think it may come down to a street address being home to more than one family, like 100 Main Street, apartment 1, apartment 2, et cetera,
right.
all having the same address. Versus, I think like a condo complex or townhouses where they have different addresses would not be a multifamily dwelling, as far as I know.
Okay.
Because the census block granularity, I believe, is on street addresses, right? Not on individual apartments or condominiums. Is that true?
I need to find that answer. I'll see if I can get that answer for you.
Yeah, I guess this is a little bit confusing. If you this block that you shaded in purple here, because it has a high fraction of multifamily residents, that includes Amesport Landing, where there's a lot of single family homes, but I guess it's buildings that have multiple flats in them. So, okay, I think I understand.
Yes.
Maybe because they're duplexes, that could be possible.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thanks.
Okay.
And then one more thing I just noticed, since you have these layers up, is if you go even further over to the right, so you have population data layers and then evaluation. So under evaluation, then that populates, it gives you a breakdown of your map by different backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds and race. So
yeah, and this is, I want to point out, it is citizen voting age population.
Yeah, thank you.
But this is, Shalise, I'll just continue to beat this dead horse here, which is that if we leave a section of this map blank, indicating our desire to use 5 districts versus 4, that blank district won't populate into this data. So we're going to have to basically figure out, oh goodness, what's, so I'm up to 91%, which means there's 9% left over. So that but there's nowhere that's going to show.
Right. You're correct. It will show in the final map that NDC produces and in the final demographic summary that accompanies with it. And again, I'm going to try to get a 5 district option for you. I requested it.
But if it feeds into a spreadsheet, the spreadsheet will have a line that says not yet added in, and you can see it there, maybe?
Right, but Hal, my point is that the detailed variable breakdown won't be there, presumably.
It will be there in the demographic summary, just not in this tool.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from committee members?
I have some.
Hal, go ahead.
So just looking at what's on the screen right now, and Shalise, you pointed out that this is showing citizen voting age population, the evaluation tab that you were in. I want to stay there for a second.
Yes, that was evaluating the map that we drew.
No, I'm leading to my question. I was just verifying what I was just referring to what I'm seeing on the screen first. But our goal is to the districts are to be ultimately measured by total population. Is that right? Not citizen voting age population?
You're correct as far as the making sure we have equal population in each of the districts. So that's the category, that's total population. And when we're speaking in those terms, total population means US citizens, non-US citizens, babies, all living people. But the evaluation over here, the citizen voting age population is often looked to when someone is looking to see how the maps were drawn, if they did a good job at respecting the Federal Voting Rights Act and not diluting the voting strength of our protected class groups. So that's why this category is important, but it's not measured for equal population. So
to try to say back to you an understanding that I take from this to see if it's accurate, the elected representatives from each district are thought of as responsible for everyone living within the district boundaries, whilst we are evaluating on the citizen voting age population those other criteria that you just described.
Yes,
right?
and that's citizen voting age population by race and ethnicity is one factor. It's not the only factor. So you'd also look at other things that we've been discussing tonight. The neighborhoods that share same characteristics, are they kept together?
So I don't have a bunch more questions. What I do want to say though is I appreciate today as a real opportunity to learn how several of these tools work And
Mhm.
like some of the others have stated, I've also been working at some of the tools, and it's pretty cool. It's very, very educational.
Thanks, Hal. And just to clarify again, Shalice, when did you say that the current data will be loaded into this tool?
When it's available, when the California adjusted data is available. So we are expecting that to happen the end of September. And then there's a 3-week waiting period before we can produce maps. So,
Okay. So the major map making flurry will happen at the beginning of October, it seems like?
correct. End of September, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Claudia?
Yeah, I have one question. At the last meeting I attended, Moon Ridge is not included within our districts. But what on Shalice's map, what is that little piece that juts out on the very south end? What neighborhood is that? That juts out to the east.
Okay, let's get there.
Down
You're
here.
talking this area?
Yeah, right.
We may be able to see that best with the interactive review map. Let me bring that up. And we can actually show the imagery. And let's pan down there. Is it that area? It's further down, this area.
And Shalice, I believe last time when we discussed that, we determined, I think there are 3 voters there in that whole bottom section, 3 or 6.
This area, I think it's 6. Let me just change. I'm going to change the base map gallery to gray so we can see that better. There's 6.
So it's not something to think of as a neighborhood, but just some open area that has a very tiny number of homes, maybe.
Or just people just randomly living there. There may not be many homes there at all. You can see, you know, we can zoom in even more closely to the. Some of you may start to recognize the building.
So it might be somebody's ranch.
Yes, it could be. Mm-hmm. These are good questions. You get a chance to see how the tools are useful.
Also,
But that is Moon Ridge when you, if you were to extend that area out. Is that not?
This is Moon Ridge right here, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that's
That is so
outside of the city.
bizarre.
Yeah.
Claudia, did you have any more questions or follow-up questions?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. If any other questions come up, I feel like people are coming across questions as they're exploring the tool a little bit. So has anyone come up with any other questions as you're looking around and using the tool for the first time? Okay. So I believe that next week is a similar meeting as this one, where once again it's a public workshop, and so I believe there was an article in the review that Jessica sent around, and so hopefully people start getting wind of what we're doing, and maybe we also can do a little more outreach to our own group to just try to get more people in here and commenting. Claudia?
Oh, yes, I wanted to suggest that we put this out on Nextdoor. It is a very good community wall for people to gain information.
And I think as Jessica was suggesting last week, if I remember correctly, you were saying we can reach out to our own networks. And so, Claudia, if you wanted to put that on Nextdoor, I think that's something that we would all be, we could do that. We could post things on Facebook, and we all kind of need to reach out to our own networks and hopefully get people to show up to the meetings on Thursday nights.
Yeah, the city does post the meetings on Nextdoor as well as Facebook, Instagram. We put it in our e-news. We're also working on, just to give the committee some context as to the outreach we're doing. We're working on a direct mailer that will go out that'll ask to all the households in Half Moon Bay, and it'll list the 3 options for district model, ask for preference. It will also ask for communities of interest. So people will be able to kind of jot down, you know, these are my, you know, this is what I consider my community of interest. It has some information on there to give people some, you know, background and context. Both of the websites will be on there, encourages people to draw maps. And then we're also going to, you know, because next Thursday is our last meeting for a bit of time. We're going to look at in September and October, trying to get to the senior center, maybe a chamber meeting, perhaps, you know, the high school government class, some other community group meetings to at least encourage people and inform them on the map drawing process and how they can be involved if they want to, and make sure that they have all the tools and information. So we'll be doing that during the meeting break of the committee.
Thanks, Jessica. That's great information. And when can we expect to have the results of a lot of that outreach? Is that September-ish?
Well, our next meeting, I believe, is November something. Is that correct, Shalise? It's like the first week in November, I think, when we review, or end of October, when we start reviewing the maps.
The deadline for maps is October 28th. Is that maybe it? Sorry.
You're right. The deadline is October 28th, and then our next meeting is November 8th.
November 8th, yeah. So when we meet on November 8th, we'll, you know, share the information that we got from the direct mailer, and then we'll update the committee on the outreach work that we did. And I guess we'll know by how many maps we received whether it was beneficial or not, but we're certainly going to give it our best effort. So
Great, thank you.
And this commission can also, I showed you on the website where you could look at the archive. If you want to look at past maps, might help to spark some interest in, you know, various ways maps could be drawn. That's something you could do.
Great. All right, well, I want to just once again thank Shalise for all the great information tonight, and the city staff, and Jessica for all the work that you have and time you have put into this, and our translators as well, and of course our committee members for being here. So we'll see you all next week, I believe, at the same time, Thursday night, for our second public hearing workshop. Thank you very much, everyone.
good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.